It's time to talk some NFC. Kevin Walsh, Donnie Rightside, and Joe Lisi. We begin in the East as we did with the AFC with a clear-cut top two. The market agrees and the results typically bear out this way. Eagles-Cowboys. History tells us it'll be Eagles because it can't be Dallas. Nobody repeats. Joe, ironically, sitting next to a pair of Eagles fans, you were Mr. Philadelphia last year. You did ruin this team's season, at least I believe it.
Yeah.
I mean,
now it comes out.
Well, I've been telling you for a while. I get reminded seeing your face. We're talking Eagles. I can't believe what you did.
Well, I didn't do it.
You had all
Matt Patricia and the defensive staff did it. They had one of the best rush. Jalen
right.
Carter did it. Jordan Davis, my guy, did it.
That's the guys on the field.
Lack of conditioning. They fell apart. They fell off a cliff in the end of the regular season. When they did, they were giving up 63 rushing yards per game during the first 11 games of the regular season. Teams were running at will on them at the end of the regular season. And talk about Baker Mayfield torching them and that secondary in terms of the playoff loss. That's on Nick Sirianni and the whole coaching staff. Jason Kelsey's gone. I mean, that offensive line takes a hit. I still think they're going to be there. The one concern, and I know Donnie disagrees with me, but I'm not sold on Kellen Moore as being this offensive guru to just light this offense up. I believe in Jalen Hurts. I believe in A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith. Not sold on Kellen Moore, especially in a big spot. But by default, I still think they win the NFC East.
I think they do, too. Now, here's the simple fixes, because I know you can't say to yourself, okay, last year was really a tale of two seasons for the Eagles. Best record in the NFL, but maybe not the best overall team. But, boy, they did fall off late in the season, and you started hearing of things like, we're doing things by ourselves. The defensive secondary, Byard comes over, and all of a sudden he's calling the defenses out of nowhere, even though Matt Patricia is trying to call it in on top of Sean Desai. Then you take a look at the offense with a couple of those games late, where I think this is the Seattle game where we're just making up our own routes out there, throwing interceptions because we don't trust what the offensive coordinator is calling on the other side, which means he was in over his head. Now you take a step back and you say, how do you rectify the situation without just getting rid of everybody? Well, they had a great offseason, which is good to get the vibes back in. It still doesn't erase what happened down the stretch. But if you tell me right now, like Nick Sirianni, who I still think is a solid head coach, you don't have a great record like that, get to the Super Bowl, playoff teams and all that without having a decent approach to the locker room. But now you say, okay, I don't call the plays. Let me go to a true play caller. Had some success in Dallas. Didn't work out all that well out there with the Chargers, but I do think he's a veteran coach that does have some good concepts that could work with the star talent that he has. Number two, Vic Fangio comes in. That defense, like the Sean Desai, we're going to wait. Okay, let's just name this Desai guy, and nobody in the locker room believed in him. You can hear Brandon Graham, who's back for, I think, his 15th year, basically say, we weren't really trusting what was called. That's dead on arrival on a game-to-game basis, and it really blew up at the end of the season. Vic Fangio comes in. Those mistakes and broken coverages won't be there at this point. So I just wanted to start with the Philadelphia Eagles. I do think from a coaching staff perspective, they will be in each game and be competent as opposed to players doing their own things repeatedly, Kevin.
Yeah, look, I think you talk about it from the coaching ending of it, and Sirianni being back, I just think is an approach, I understand. Look, they collapsed in a largely unforgivable fashion. 9-8, 14-3, goes to the Super Bowl, and last year was 11-6. He's 34-17 as a head coach. Firing Sirianni, I think, would have been a really tough move, considering the whole Peterson stuff. And again, I get it why they did it with Doug, and I would have understood had it happened with Nick Sirianni, but do you really want that to become your identity, that this kind of becomes the revolving door all of a sudden? The big additions they made, Saquon Barkley, I get all of it. It's the two draft picks. It's Quinyon Mitchell, it's Cooper DeJean. It's arguably the two best defensive backs in the entire draft, and the Eagles were able to acquire both. Because while it is fair to say the offense at times took a step back, even while things were going well for the offense, the defense going back to the Super Bowl run was not good enough. So that is where the excitement and optimism starts to check in, Donnie, for Philly. Yep. That now you look at the secondary and think, again, a strength. I don't want to get ahead of myself here, but it's not dead last in the league, which it was as they closed out the season.
Exactly. And you're taking a look there, too, at getting Gardner Johnson back at safety, who was a very pivotal piece of that team that went to the Super Bowl, and sort of that lifeblood is, okay, if nobody wants to stick up for my teammates, I'll stick up for the guy. So they do have that going for them here. I'm just looking at, and again, you have a lot of guys getting paid, and, sometimes you can take a look at, and I brought up the Cincinnati Bengals earlier. You don't want animosity into the locker room into the season. The reason I bring that up is the Eagles paid their wide receivers. They went out and paid Devontae Smith, knowing they had a hot head on the other side. They go, hey, look, hold on. Take care of this guy. We're going to pay you more money than anybody's been paid at the wide receiver position in the NFL on a year-to-year basis when you get paid. That was A.J. Brown. But also, one of the key moves that isn't talked about, Hassan Reddick, great player for the Eagles, wanted way more money than he was deserved, and maybe rightfully so. They got rid of that right away. He's with the Jets now. Or should I say, is he actually with the Jets? Because he hasn't shown up yet. I think the ability to remove the cancerous parts of the locker room. I'm not even saying bad players or that was really that out of whack, but you weren't listening to coaches. Let me get 2 coaches you're going to listen to. Maybe a defensive end who started to freelance and do his own thing at the end of the season because he wanted more money, didn't trust what was being called. They removed that from the situation. I think they really put that to a head. And also, to Kevin's point, like Nick Sirianni is not going to get fired. Hey, he deserved to get fired. You bring in Belichick. Has anybody got fired with that type of record outside of what? Schottenheimer with the Chargers, where it's like 14-2 and couldn't get over the hump. But I just look at it from a locker room scenario. The Eagles are in a much better place today than they were, Joe, when the season ended.
I wanted to bring up something with Dallas, though, just because they're such a part of this conversation. And when we're talking about kind of coaching movement here, and we're going to get to the Commanders in a moment. I don't think you can really overstate losing their defensive coordinator, right?
True.
It's one of those things. He was so excellent for this team, but the defense, the production was always odd. They turned teams over at an impressive rate, but they really couldn't get stops without it. So now that you have Campbell moving over to Washington, I worry about that defense. I mean, the offense stuff is all weird. Who has contracts? Who doesn't? McCarthy's back. It's the fact that now they lost Campbell, I think, could really be disastrous.
I believe so as well. And again, that defense didn't step up against Jordan Love in Green Bay in the playoff loss, right? I mean, the completely non-existent. Dan Quinn, right, Dan Quinn. But again, it's deeper. Dallas is deeper than that. Again, they have major question marks as it relates to the quarterback. I mean, Dak Prescott's no different than Kirk Cousins. Where's the marquee playoff win under his belt? Unless this team makes an NFC championship, how could you buy into the team as a whole? C.D. Lamb, one of the best playmakers at the wide receiver position. We know that in the regular season they could outscore anybody. Yeah. Put them in a playoff environment. Who would you want on the center? Jalen Hurts or Dak Prescott? That's it for me. Even though Jalen Hurts didn't win a Super Bowl, he still got his team there. I know he's going to give it 150%. I would much rather bet and buy into Jalen Hurts and Nick Sirianni than I would in terms of McCarthy and Dak, and that's what it comes down to for me.
By the way, you take a look at the Dallas Cowboys. You usually can pencil them in the double digits regardless. They're still extremely talented. There's no question about it. But also, it just felt like last year. Sometimes the Eagles didn't play well to end the season. You could see it coming from a long way. But the shot in the arm that the Cowboys got when the Eagles lost at home to the Arizona Cardinals and figured they were going to win the division, get that home. Like Jerry Jones, that very next morning on Monday was like, this is God's gift. I didn't expect this. We're going to have home playoff games. We're going to make a run to the Super Bowl, and got rocked by Green Bay right off the bat. And then he took the interesting approach, which is so non-Cowboys-like. You usually restructure everybody, create $50 million, spend, get a good team. He basically put the kibosh on everything being spent in Dallas and goes, prove it to me, even if it makes your football team worse. I can't believe they're going into this year with Dak Prescott, right or wrong, $60+ million against the cap. CeeDee Lamb wants a contract. We haven't heard a rumble out of him when we know he should be one of the highest paid players in the league. Micah Parsons wants to get paid. He's now going forward with what? Malik Hooker in the secondary. They're not getting along. And also, McCarthy is angry. He's a lame duck coach. Where have we seen that before? Hey, you better win this year or we're not giving you a contract. How's that work out?
They have a lame duck coach and a lame duck quarterback.
Yes, it's unbelievable.
The whole thing is totally, totally bizarre. I don't know. Jerry's strategy of let's make sure everybody doesn't feel comfortable is going to be old strategy. We'll see how it plays out. What about the Commanders? What about the Giants? We'll talk about that next. Commanders, Giants. Can anyone possibly make a push in this division? It happened once with Alex Smith leading the charge. Just everybody else was kind of a disaster. When you look right now, Joe, at the Commanders or the Giants, are you in on one team more than the other?
I'm in on Jayden Daniels and the Commanders. I believe in Dan Quinn. I believe in the offensive playmakers around Jayden Daniels, coupled with the fact that Cliff Kingsbury is going to be calling plays. Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson. You got Brian Robinson and new addition Austin Eckler to that offense. They can score on anybody, I believe. And I believe Jayden Daniels is the best quarterback in this draft class. We talked about it earlier, in potentially 800 rushing yards on the ground this year, a versatile dual threat that really lit up college football. Jayden Daniels is a winner, will quickly elevate this team. And even though I'm not huge on Dan Quinn as a head coach, even though he had success in regards to previous stints, he's much better than Ron Rivera was in a big way. His teams will be prepared. Dan Quinn will know whether the Washington Commanders have been eliminated from playoff contention, and that's a huge start in Washington.
Exactly. Maybe we'll put Carson Wentz in or not, or maybe pull him out of the game. But, yes, they will be a more competent team entering into the season. And also, just by de facto, no more Dan Snyder, right? You're another year removed there, getting farther and farther away. You could put your own stamp on this thing. I do think it's interesting with Daniels at quarterback. And the reason is I don't think they're going to make the playoffs, but it seems like the talent is there in Washington where they're going to surprise some good football teams and upset some teams this season. And the problem that sometimes you run into is with the quarterback position being young, the games that you're supposed to win or maybe think you win, you give those games away, but you have enough talent there to surprise. I'm interested to see how this season goes along because I do think they have some talent here. I just don't know what's going to face itself where it's like, can we get to 8 wins and at least be in that playoff race by the time we get to December, midway through it. But I'm high on Daniels. I think he'll be a good quarterback. And for myself, I'm going to be liking betting him week to week because the one thing I know, if you're a rookie quarterback and you have electric skills like nobody can catch me, you really like to take off. 1 read, 2 reads, it's not there. You're not sticking around for the 3rd and 4th read. You're like, I can run for a first down. I do think about taking his props early in the season, rushing, because he's probably, look, if I ask you right now, first 3 games, at least one of those games, 100 yards on the ground?
Yeah,
I think so.
Anthony Richardson broke out.
Yeah.
Ready for this?
Yeah.
Season long.
Oh, boy.
Oh, boy.
You want to guess?
50.
What?
51 touchdowns?
No, I thought yards rush. What?
Per
what are
game?
we talking?
You think what do you
50 rushing yards for the season?
50,
I'll take the over.
50-yard run, longest rush.
No. What do you think?
Wait. Let me get this straight. So you think there's a Brad out there that's like his longest rush of the season is 50?
50. I don't know. He finds everything. I don't know. I thought you had something for me.
I like
there.
that.
What'd you have?
What'd you have?
Season long total rushing yards. Would anyone like to take a guess?
650.
No,
Leesy's in at 50.
Yeah,
650.
50 yards.
650. Okay. Donnie?
I'm going to go, because let's just say 820, 825, 825 and a half. 825 and a half.
Well, everyone's new best bet just dropped.
What is
Jayden Daniels' season-long rushing total is 525 and a half
Oh,
yards.
come on
That's
now.
it.
Yeah, come on now.
You got it. I mean, you can't
Come
have
on.
it. 800. 800.
Oh, let me pull out the calculator. We'll do this
I
in
would have
real
been
time.
820. Yeah, what is
I don't
825
care.
divided by 17? What is it?
That's what I'm about to find
Yeah.
out right now. Yeah, you're talking 31
Come
yards a game. 31 yards
I love
a game.
it. I think we found it. Yeah, I think
There
we
you go.
found it.
If he
Yeah, we found
averages 50 yards a game,
He is going
He
to.
only
I think
needs
he
to
is.
play 11 weeks
Yes.
to clear the number.
it. Let me check that roster out.
He's going to have a game
What's the
where he
backup
has 100.
situation there?
I'm telling you.
Hartman,
I agree.
Justin
Driscoll,
Fields took
Mario.
games over
Yeah,
with his legs.
I love it. I love it.
I mean,
I love it.
and just to let you know, the number's 550 and a half on DK. I haven't checked every single book, but what I can tell you is the 525 and a half is, I don't know if it's the lowest number, it's a lower number, but you're not 650, 820. That's not where they're pricing it
Yeah,
because he's
we're
a
over.
rookie. But it opens up the door. And look, again, Washington, big picture, the one thing for me is you get Dan Quinn, you pair him with Cliff Kingsbury. I think that's very exciting.
It is.
The world where Kingsbury is a dynamic offensive coordinator wouldn't surprise me one bit. And we've seen Dan Quinn be excellent with defenses before. Dan Quinn, look, I know I just messed his name up in the last segment saying Dan Campbell, but Dan Quinn went to a Super Bowl, right? I mean, how many coaches even have that on their resume, being the head coach of a team that played in a Super Bowl actively right now in this league? So I think the challenge for Washington is if the Eagles and the Cowboys, in order for the Commanders to win the division, both teams will have to have pretty nightmarish seasons. But the Commanders could certainly get through expectations. The Giants, on the other hand, I mean, you talk about lame duck situations. there are very few people that are even still trying to hold on to the Daniel Jones dream. Lisa, you spent a lot of the offseason calling for them to take a chance on Fields. That did not happen. They're going to go with Daniel Jones. They didn't draft a quarterback. I'm fine with that decision. But it's just going to be, I think, a weird year in New York.
Yeah, what is their offensive identity? You sort of saw it in year number one with Brian Daboll when they knocked off Kirk Cousins in Minnesota, ran the football, and then they had the evolution of Jones in the passing attack. Malik Neighbors is a great wide receiver. Can he get him the football is the main question. You have Wan'Dale Robinson there, another playmaker. Can Daniel Jones stay healthy enough and play 17 games or 15 games? That is the biggest question mark. I don't think he can. I mean, forget the knee injury. He's had 2 neck injuries throughout his career now in which he's missed time. I mean, he gets hit again. He's like Tua. Can you guarantee me that he's going to be standing for 15 games? I don't believe so. Again, I think they have pieces there to be successful, but if I had to bet the win total right now, I'd probably go under.
They have a few pieces on defense. I don't like their secondary at all. I don't like their offensive line. I don't like their quarterback. You're relying on a young wide receiver with a quarterback that can't pass the football. Oh, hand it off to Saquon's not even there. Now it's Singletary in the backfield. This just has all the makings of, boy, you gave it your best there, Daboll, but you are getting fired at the end of the season. We're going to find a new quarterback. And quite frankly, they probably should have went quarterback in this draft as opposed to going Neighbors. Now, I understand Neighbors should be a talent. Neighbors is a talent if you have a quarterback that can get him the football in an offense that's ready to go. If you don't have a quarterback who's not going to get time, what are we getting out of the Giants this year?
Yeah.
So this is a thing that NFL teams are not often accepting of, but if the Giants are, I think it'll work out. And that is, we are going to be terrible this year. But why
Can't
not?
be.
Why?
Because it's New York. It's win now or go. No,
hey, listen,
trust
me. You can be terrible in New York.
You can.
You can
but,
be.
But not when you win a playoff game in year one.
Well,
that's the biggest problem he had.
Gets messy.